Have you tried buying a new laptop recently? Or maybe building a PC? If you have, you've probably looked at the price tag and thought, wait, what is going on here? Well, you're not crazy. We're actually living through a massive, behind-the-scenes hardware crisis right now. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to unravel the cinematic mystery of why getting your hands on a new computer or smartphone has suddenly become painfully expensive. We're diving deep into a phenomenon the tech world is quietly calling the global Rampocalypse.
172%. That is the unprecedented surge in consumer DRAM prices we've seen in 2025 alone. Just let that sink in for a second. The memory that makes your computer actually function, literally the absolute bedrock of modern electronics, nearly tripled in price in a single year. And here's the crazy part. This isn't normal inflation. This isn't a pandemic-era shipping delay. This is a massive structural earthquake hitting the tech industry, and it is actively reshaping what you and I can afford.
And honestly, it's not just us everyday consumers feeling the heat. The absolute biggest players are panicking. Dell's chief operating officer recently came out and admitted they've never witnessed costs escalating at the current pace. That is pure C-suite panic. Tech giants like Dell, HP, and Lenovo are literally hoarding memory inventory right now just to survive the squeeze. Lenovo's CFO even confessed they're sitting on 50% more memory than normal. Basically, everyone is bracing for a crash.
Section 1. The big reveal? AI is eating the supply.
So, if it's not standard inflation, what's actually causing this? Well, it's the insatiable, almost bottomless appetite of artificial intelligence. The global AI boom is literally devouring the memory supply chain alive. Companies like Google, Meta, and Microsoft are basically handing blank checks to memory suppliers. But it gets wilder. OpenAI recently partnered with Samsung and SK Hynix for their Stargate infrastructure project. Reports show that this one single initiative is going to lock up nearly 40% of the entire global DRAM output. Just think about that. One project, almost half the world's supply.
To put that 40% into perspective, it equals about $900,000. That's 900,000 raw silicon wafers required every single month just to feed OpenAI Stargate. They're actually buying undiced wafers, like raw, unpackaged silicon straight off the assembly line, just to streamline building these massive data centers. Everyday consumers, gamers, students, we've never ever had to compete against this terrifying scale of raw memory consumption.
Which brings us to Section 2, the mechanics, and why this is fundamentally a microscopic problem. To really grasp why this macroeconomic shortage is happening, we've got to zoom way in, down to the silicon itself. Inside your computer, you basically have two types of working memory, SRAM and DRAM. Think of SRAM like a small, perfectly organized desk right in front of you. You can grab exactly what you need instantly. It's blazing fast. DRAM, on the other hand, is like this massive, highly dense storage warehouse. It holds way more stuff, but it takes a little longer to walk down the aisles and find what you're looking for.
When you look at the physical engineering, SRAM is incredibly fast, taking about 1 nanosecond to access data. But it's bulky and expensive because it takes 6 whole transistors to store just 1 bit of data. DRAM? It's slower, maybe 10 to 60 nanoseconds, but it is insanely dense and dirt cheap. Why? Because it relies on just 1 tiny transistor and 1 microscopic capacitor per bit. You can pack billions of them into a single chip. That's why your computer's main memory is made of DRAM. But this cheap, dense little architecture has a fatal flaw.
Engineers call it the leaky bucket problem. See, a DRAM capacitor holds an electrical charge to represent a 1 or a 0, but it constantly leaks that charge. So to keep your computer from instantly forgetting everything, it has to do something called memory refresh. The controller has to constantly read and rewrite the data over and over just to keep that electrical charge from disappearing.
So, how often does it have to do this? Every 64 milliseconds. Literally, every 64 milliseconds, your computer hits pause to recharge millions of microscopic capacitors. It's this massive, never-ending background task just to keep the warehouse lights on. It eats power, and it creates slight delays. Now, if you're building a multi-billion-dollar AI supercomputer, you need thousands of terabytes of memory, and you absolutely can't afford those delays.
And that leads us to Section 3, the collision, or what we call the high bandwidth squeeze. Because standard DRAM has those microscopic speed limits, it triggers a massive global domino effect. AI data centers need a highly specialized stacked architecture called high bandwidth memory, or HBM. But HBM takes significantly more wafer capacity to manufacture. Since AI giants are paying ridiculous premiums, the world's biggest memory factories have totally shifted their assembly lines to pump out HBM. The result? It directly strangles the production of normal consumer-grade DDR5 memory. The supply crashes, and retail prices for you and me just absolutely explode.
And there's a whole perfect storm fueling this fire. Samsung just expanded its capacity specifically for HBM4 production, yanking even more resources away from consumer tech. On top of that, US-China trade barriers have basically frozen the sales of older manufacturing equipment, capping how much the world can actually produce. Throw in the fact that older memory factories are retiring early, and you've got a supply chain that is just totally suffocating.
Section 4. The impact. Consumer shock and fallout. So what's the actual so what here? How does this hit your wallet? Well, the warnings are flashing red. HP recently revealed that their memory costs practically doubled overnight. Just last quarter, memory made up about 15% of the total cost to build a PC. Fast forward to Q1 of 2026, and they expect that to jump to an astonishing 35%. When a third of a laptop's entire budget is eaten up by one single component that keeps skyrocketing in price, something's got to give. And what gives is the budget market. Research from Gartner dropped a pretty grim forecast. They project the classic $500 budget laptop might become financially unviable to make within 2 years. The underlying memory is just too expensive to hit that price point anymore. We might literally be watching the extinction of the cheap, reliable budget PC.
And the collateral damage is everywhere. Valve actually had to delay their highly anticipated second Steam machine entirely because of these memory prices. Micron, one of America's biggest chip makers, shut down their historic, crucial consumer brand completely to focus purely on AI clients. Over in Tokyo's famous Akihabara district, retailers are literally placing limits on how much memory you can buy to stop people from hoarding. It's a modern-day gold rush, but for RAM.
Finally, Section 5, the future and surviving the drought.
So how long are we stuck in this RAM apocalypse? Well, here's the painful timeline ahead of us. Analysts and top executives at companies like SK Hynix project that wafer supply is going to trail demand by 20% for years. In fact, they don't expect this shortage to actually ease up until at least 2030. We're staring down a multi-year paradigm shift where the insatiable hunger of AI data centers is just going to keep forcing consumer tech prices higher and higher.
Which leaves us with one really important, provocative question. Should you wait to upgrade? Human nature says, hey, what goes up must come down, I'll just wait a year. But looking at the data, the factory bottlenecks, and those 900,000 wafers getting swallowed by projects like Stargate every single month, the hard truth is, waiting might actually be the most expensive mistake you can make. The structural shift has already happened. AI is the priority now. So if you're on the fence about a new system, you might want to pull the trigger today because tomorrow's memory, it's already spoken for. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.